Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well today. I have 5 decoupage Christmas projects for you. I'll also be announcing the last 2 winners in my 10,000 subscriber giveaway. So stay tuned for that throughout the video, and this is project number 1. Let me tell you, this one was an ordeal only because I did this to myself. I just couldn't make up my mind when I was doing this. So this is the arch from IOD. I do have a few of these. I think they're sold out at IOD, but I think I have like 3 or 4 of them on my website, and maybe even a couple in my stores. So anyway, what I'm doing is, remember all those pieces that I cast for the tree? Well, I am using them on this arch, and I'm going to try and use them all up, and I think I used most of it all up, and it's just kind of random pieces, but I'm wanting to make it look somewhat, intentional. So I'm just kind of putting things wherever they may fit, and it's amazing on these castings how they're just so many different sizes and so many different looks that go together. And I just kind of piece them all together. I'm just using my tight bound glue, and I'm just gluing directly to this frame, which I absolutely love these arches. I can see why they're sold out, because the way that they're tiered, and I'm sure this wasn't by accident, those castings fit perfectly in those little spaces. So anyway, I'm just going to piece it all together, and in the end, I do cast just a couple more pieces, but for the most part, I just use what I have left over from when I did the tree. So now I'm going to be using the angelic tapers again, and I'm actually going to be casting several of them. There's going to be the larger one. It's going to go on the top, and then there's 2 other ones going to go in the middle, and then 2 other ones on the bottom. And I'm just kind of playing with them and figuring out where I'm going to put them. This is going to be extremely ornate, to say the least. You look at all the castings on there. I figured it kind of needed to be over the top, with all the different castings on there. The great thing about using clay, like I said, is you can mold it, you can bend it, and you put some of that tight bond on, and boy, it's just shocking how well it just, sticks together, and you don't ever have to worry about it coming apart. Just has to have something to back it. You just don't want to not have it up against something. So anyway, I'm going to put the 2 angels on the side and cut off part of the bottom, and then I put a larger one in the middle and 2 on the very bottom. So I let it dry for about an hour, and then I went over the whole thing with Pentart's 2-in-1 primer, and I'm going to let that sit overnight. And it's not a bad idea to use a primer when you're using raw wood like that was. I mean, you could use paint with the sealer on it, but a primer is a good thing. In the long run, it saves you time, I think, and saves you paint. So, because you don't have to use as many layers. So I'm using a fairly soft brush whenever I go over these castings that are not completely dry. You want to make sure that you're not pressing down too much and getting rid of any of the detail. So the next day, I am going over the whole thing. It's completely dry now. And I'm going over the whole thing with a Fusion Champness, which is a beautiful French blue color. And this is, my intention is to just do the French blue and a French gold on this. And you'll see it gets to that point. And I maybe could have stopped at that point. But when I got to that point, it was like 1:30 in the morning, and I was kind of like crafting delirious, and I just kept adding to it and adding to it. But anyway, you'll see for yourself. So I go over the whole thing with this gorgeous color. It's a gorgeous French blue, guys. It really is. So I go over the back, of course, because it's raw wood. And of course, Fusion has a built-in primer and sealer. So I don't have to worry about doing anything else. So now what I'm doing is I'm going over the whole thing with Fusion Beeswax. It's just a clear wax, because my intention is to go over this with some aging wax. And I usually like to put a clear wax on before an aging wax, just so that I have more control over it. It's a little looser, and I can wipe more of it back if I want to. So I go over the whole thing with my wax brush and get in all that nice detail. So far, so good. And then I wipe back a lot of it. So now what I'm doing is I am going over the little angels, and I am using Pentart's French gold. I love this gold, guys. It's almost has like a silver tone to it. It's a very pale gold, and I love it. And this is where I think I should have stopped and called it a day, because I start going off in a whole nother direction. Okay, so here I have some gorgeous decoupage paper that I have already cut out. I basically use the water technique, and I just put water around it and kind of have a torn edge. I like that better than just putting it, cutting it. So there's a little gap on top, and I'm going to fill that in later. And I just put it down with my decoupage medium from Pentart. And I put it all down, and now I'm using a plastic baggie just to smooth it out. give me a nice smooth uh, piece. It'll take out any little lumps and bumps. And because there was that little gap on top, I'm adding some paint up there, and I even go onto the paper a little bit just because you'll see later. I want this to look like it's been painted on, and blending some of that paint onto the piece helps do that. And now what I'm doing is I am taking Paint Couture Crackle Medium. It's a 2-part medium, and I put part 1 down and I dry it, and then I'm going to put part 2 down, and I'm doing kind of a cross-hatch motion on it because I kind of want really small cracks, and I'm going over the part that I blended with the paint, and I'm also going over the little angels because I want some crackle on those too. So I go over the whole thing, and I'm going to let that dry, and it's going to give me some really fine little cracks over it so that it looks like it's an old painting that's just been around, that's been cracking and chipping, and it's just beautiful how it turns out. I love using this stuff. So, like I said, I go over the angels, and I'm going to let that dry. I let it dry naturally. And now what I'm doing is I'm going over this with Paint Couture. I think it's called Amber Honey. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what it is. It's a glaze. It's lighter than the Van Dyke Brown. And I'm going over that when it's all dry. And what that's going to do, it's going to highlight all of the little cracks from the Crackle Medium. And it does a really good job of that. It's hard to see at a distance, but close up you can really notice it. And it just really just brings your painting or whatever to a different level of making it look old world, because you're adding all those little cracks that, you know, they would occur naturally over time, and it's blending in the part that I painted, and it really does make it look like it's been painted. And it's also going to pick up any imperfections that you have in there too, like if there's any wrinkles or anything, and I actually think that adds character. Okay, so here's the part where I kind of go crazy. I start looking at this thinking that I want a more of a layered paint look. So I start taking out several different colors. Fusion, Seaside, Pressed Fern, the Champness, and Willowbank. And I'm spraying it with some water. I even take some of the milk paint and put it in there. I'm just going to town, adding layers and layers and layers, because I wanted it to look older, and like it was. I just thought that the decoupage looked so cool and so old, and I don't know. I just think it didn't, even though it had a vintage look to it. To me, it didn't look layered enough. So that's what happens at 1:30 in the morning when you think you're done and you're going to go to bed. Next thing you know, you're up for another hour adding 15 layers of paint to this thing. So after I put all those layers of paint in there, I decide that I want to go ahead and put some white wax on it. And I'm using Fusion's Liming Wax. It's super creamy, wonderful white wax. If you need to get a wax, I would really highly recommend it. Their aging wax is amazing too. I love the color of the aging wax. Anyway, so I'm going over this because I want it to have that kind of, old lime, look with all of the other layers. I want to add another layer. So I go over the whole thing and then I wipe it back. And then what I'm doing is I'm going over all these little creases and crevices and things like that. I'm kind of randomly going over it with this stuff called grit. It's by Sweet Pickens. It's kind of a powdery substance. It's kind of a grayish brown color. And it basically adds like dirt, a dirt color, an old color. It's really fantastic stuff. At first I thought, oh, really? And I mean, I love it because you can put it on in a very controlled way, and it has a look like nothing else does. It really does look very authentically old. And sometimes when you use a white wax, it can look, it adds the age effect, but it can look too new or too perfect. And if you look at something old that has that lime look, it always has some dirt in it too. So I added that to different sections of it. And then lastly, I went over the angels with a little bit more gold. I think I used the pale gold, and I used another one too. But anyway, I layered the gold, and I made sure I put some of that grit in there, and the little crevices with the angels to make sure they looked old. And that's pretty much it. I added a tiny, tiny bit of gold in a few spots around just to make it look like at one point there was gold around and then it maybe chipped off. And that's the finished product, guys. Let me know what you think. If I should have stopped way long time ago, or if you like it the way it is now. You won't hurt my feelings. Anyway, this is it, guys. I like it. Okay, guys, so the name flashing up there is our first winner. All you have to do is get in touch with me. I'll put my email in the description box, and you just send me your information. You need your address and where I can mail it out. And that is our first winner in the 10,000 subscriber giveaway. All right, project number 2. I think you'll like this one. It's pretty easy. Anyway, this is quick and easy. I had this frame, and it already was painted just like you see it there. And what I'm doing is I am simply going to take some wax by Fusion. It's called Rose Gold, and I am telling you, I have fallen in love with it. When I first saw it, I was like, I don't think I'll ever use that. Oh boy. It is just something like no other. It has the perfect pink tone to it, and it just adds the perfect touch of pink. And all I'm doing is I'm just wiping this wax on and wiping off a lot, letting it set in the crevices, and just barely having it go over this white frame. I thrifted this frame. It was $5 and 75% off. So I don't know. I'm going to do the math. But anyway, that's all it cost me. So I'm doing that. And then after I put the wax on, I'm taking my new favorite gold, the French gold. I like the gold wax too. But the French gold is by Couture. And I carry all these on my website, guys, if you're interested. And I'm going over just the raised portions. Remember, they were already silver. But the French gold it's a little different color. It has a cross between gold and silver. But it's a very light color. I think it would work really well with blue. Anyway, I'm going over all the raised portions in that. And that's basically all I'm going to do. But I really, and I will have to say, Fusion's waxes, finishing waxes are to die for because they are so silky smooth, and they're just wonderful, and they go on great and dry great. So now I have this piece of decoupage paper. I also carry that, and I'm putting inside the frame. I just put my decoupage medium on. This is just one of those frames, you know, where the back pops open. And I put it on, and I'm using my little baggie to make sure it's down nice and smooth. Now, of course, I could have just dropped this in the frame, but I don't know. I like how it looks when it's down there good, and I put a top coat on it. So now what I'm doing is I bought these stamps off of Amazon, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp this stamp on this little piece of drop cloth that I've kind of frayed. It says, "Oh, come let us adore him." And I put that in there at the bottom, and that's it. That is my last project. Super easy, but I love it. Okay, so this is number 3, and these were super fun and easy to make. So the first thing I'm going to do is I've got some scrap wood, and this is just some wood that we had sitting around that was left over from some of the build outs in my booths, and I am covering them with Paint Couture's 2-in-1 primer, which I absolutely love because it dries really quick and it covers really well, and those are 2 things that I love. So I'm going ahead and priming these. You could definitely just put some paint on them that has a primer built in, or spray them. It's raining outside, so I'm not going to do that today. And now I'm using some Sweet Pickins milk paint, and it's a 1-to-1 ratio, 1 part milk paint to 1 part water, and you mix it. I usually just mix it and let it sit for a while. You will notice that I use the green right away, and I let the red sit for a little while, and you'll see the red gets a little thicker when it sets out. So if you can let it set for a good 10 or 15 minutes, it'll get a little thicker, and you may not have to use as many coats. But I was in a hurry. When I'm making a video, my biggest problem in my crafts that I make is I just get in a hurry because I'm trying to get the video done. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and mix up the red and the green. And the red is Cherry Pie by Sweet Pickins, and the green is Basil. I carry both of those on my website if you're interested. I love milk paint, guys. It is totally different than anything else that you can use. It achieves an effect that you really can't get with anything else. And that's why I carry it, because different crafts to me have different applications, and you have different outcomes. So it's good to have different things in your arsenal. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and paint this with 1 coat. And then I'm going to let that dry, and I'm going to do another coat. I'm going to be using my heat gun in between to heat dry it, and that helps achieve the crackle. The reason that I primed these boards is if you have raw wood and you don't prime it, what will happen is your milk paint will just absorb into the paint, and it probably won't crack very much. And that you may want that. You may want a look that looks just like chalk paint. You can also add something called Extra Bond, and it'll perform basically like chalk paint, But if you put the milk paint on raw wood, it'll just absorb into the wood and it won't crackle nearly as much, if at all. So I use my heat gun in between layers of this, and you can already see some of the crackle up there and the board on the top. It's beautiful. And the heat gun just adds more crackle. You'll get more if you use heat with it. So now what I'm doing is I've got this absolutely gorgeous paper. This is from Decoupage Central. I do sell this on my website. I've got quite a few of these Highland cows because I'm going to actually make quite a few of them, but I can order more if y'all want to buy some. This is a really inexpensive way if you're flipping things in your booth. I sell these very quickly in my booth, and the cost is minimal, probably, I don't know, maybe $3 or $4 to make them. And I sell them a little bit under $20, about $18, and they fly out the door. So it's the reason I'm making several in this video, but they're all going to be a little different. So I hope you guys aren't bored. So what I'm doing, I am going around this board and I'm leaving the white in the middle so that my decoupage paper will pop. I'm going to go ahead and dry that. I just kind of measured it, and yes, the decoupage paper is going to overlap onto the green, and that's fine. I want that. I just want the middle portion of it to be white. And now I'm taking some decoupage medium from Paint Couture, and I'm putting that on very liberally. And I'm now going to put a bunch on the top, and I'm really trying to make sure that this decoupage paper conforms to this wood. It's got a lot of grain and texture in it, and I'm kind of wanting it to kind of meld into this board. It's going to have kind of like a hand-painted look when it's done. So now I'm doing the other second part of that decoupage sheet. So you get two pictures of these Highland cows from that one sheet. So it's very cost-effective craft if you're selling them or making them for gifts. So again, I'm just going to go through the same process and get that all down and let it dry. And now I'm moving on to the red. And if you'll notice, the red seems a little bit thicker. That's because I let it set out for a while I was doing the other green projects. So you will get a little thicker application if you let it sit like you're supposed to for about, 10 or 15 minutes. So anyway, I'm going to go through the same process with these beautiful little chickens, and you guys can just sit back and watch. So now that I have those drying, I'm moving on to a couple more that I'm going to do. And this color is Moody Blue by Sweet Pickens. I love this color. It goes great with the project that we're going to do. And again, it's 1 part water to 1 part milk paint. And I always use these little forks that I have. I just have like a stack of them that, you know, these cheap little forks that you got. They mix really well and I can throw them away. And I buy these little cups at Dollar Tree. You can use any kind, really. And then just let it set. Again, I'm not letting this set as long as I should because I'm doing the video. But if you let it set 10 or 15 minutes, it'll get a lot thicker than what I'm using. But, you know, I'm in a hurry. Isn't that a beautiful color? So I'm going to basically do the same thing to this that I did with the others. I'm going to go ahead and paint it. This is going to take a couple coats because I did it thinner, but it has pretty good coverage. You'd be surprised. Most of the time my milk paint, you have to do a couple coats of it. And I always use my heat gun on each coat because it will achieve more crackle that way. And of course, I'm going to go ahead and have a little outline on this. This is a smaller piece of wood. I did not cut any of these pieces. I just took them out of the garage, the size that they were, and we're making projects with them. So that's what I did. There's really not a lot of prep that I did in this. And it's amazing how sometimes that can end up being some of your best crafts. So this is a beautiful paper with these angels. They're absolutely gorgeous. And of course you get 2 of these images to a paper. All 3 of these projects, you get 2 images. So that's what really makes your cost minimal when you're doing these. And of course, this decoupage paper is very inexpensive. And of course, scrap wood, you can maybe even get it for free, is inexpensive. Aren't those gorgeous? And of course, we're going to do the same steps as we did with the other pieces and go over them. So now we have moved on to coating all of these with Paint Couture's top coat in satin. Look at that beautiful crackle. Isn't that gorgeous? And then after that top coat dries, I am taking Sweet Pickens oil wax and I'm going over all of the boards. The reason that I put a top coat on this before I did the oil wax is that it won't absorb that much and it won't completely change the color of the paint. It'll kind of sit on top and go in those cracks. But I'm using the oil wax because the effect that it gives is amazing. Oil wax works so well in getting that crackle to, you know, to get it all into those cracks and really pronounce it and make it look old and vintage. And what I'm doing is I'm using a paper towel to wipe off most of it, and then I'm just taking the excess that's left on the paper towel and I'm going over the top of these boards just to kind of vintage up the part where the decoupage paper is, and it'll dry a lot lighter. But if you did not put a top coat on it or some sort of sealer, it would absorb more into the color, and I didn't want that, so that's why I put a top coat on it first. You could also use a clear wax. Look at that gorgeous crackle, guys. And what that oil wax does is it's going to get in there where I have that white paint showing where the crackle is, and it's going to vintage it up a little. And when you use a water-based top coat on your milk paint, it will cause it to crackle even more because it reactivates that milk paint. So I do that on all of these, and I basically just take the excess and go over the paper, and it kind of blends it all together. And now all I'm doing is taking my handy dandy little pink drill that I love because it is small and it fits in my hands, but it's very powerful. And I'm going to go ahead and drill some holes in all of these so that I can put a hanger on them. And that, just go through the process of doing that on all of them. So I just put some little wired pickberry that I got at the Dollar Tree as hangers on all of these. The pickberry as a hanger, and I've got some little picks that I got off of Amazon, and I have some little rusty stars and rusty bells, and I'm going to go ahead and be putting those on these. And then what I have there is some different fabrics that I have torn into little strips that I'm going to make a little messy bow. And on a messy bow, I just take different strips of fabric. I don't like using any kind of wired ribbon. I'm not looking for a poofy type bow. I want it to be kind of raggy. And I just put different strips together. And I'll just go ahead and take a piece of, I have rusty wire. You don't have to use rusty wire, but I have some. And I go ahead and just twist it in the middle really tight, and that makes my bow. And I go ahead and dovetail the ends. And I will go ahead and put a little rusty star on there and hot glue it onto that corner just to kind of jazz it up a little. And it's very inexpensive to make these bows that way, and the little rusty things don't cost much, and you can certainly add that look. And anyway, this is all of them. I hope you enjoy these and hope you decide to try and make some yourself. All right, so this is project number 4, and this is kind of a do-over. These are 2 beautiful, beautiful mirrors that I went ahead and I had put some transfers on. I have it in a video, one of my first videos that I did on this channel. And while I love how they look, they have not sold. And I think part of it is I put the transfers on. I'm trying to cover the mirrors because the mirrors were kind of scratched and damaged. These are antique mirrors. And I had, people a little upset that I changed the mirrors, but they're kind of scratched up. They had a design that was on it and it was kind of scratched and messed up. And I think you can see that through the transfer. So I am actually going to cover up those transfers, even though they're beautiful. And I'm going to go ahead and use these Cardinals, this decoupage paper. And again, this is from Decoupage Central. And I went ahead and decided I was going to put this music paper in the background because this is larger than the pieces of decoupage paper that I have. So I'm just taking my finger to do a little outline here. So I'm going to go ahead and outline this whole thing so I know where to cut it. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut around it. And that will give me my shape for my mirror. And this is a very easy project, really. And it's going to, sometimes when you make things over, you may like it, but it doesn't sell. So, you got to be prepared to redo it. So now all I'm doing is I'm going over the back of this with some of my 2-in-1 primer. I don't want the previous transfer to show through. And it might not have done that, but I didn't want to take that chance. So I put the primer on the back and I'm going to let it dry so it won't show through. And then I went ahead and tore out my pages for my Cardinals, and I put some of the 2-in-1 primer on that piece. And in retrospect, I wished I had not put the primer on the Cardinal pieces because I don't think it was necessary. I don't think the other paper would have really shown through the Cardinal portion. I did it because I wanted it to pop, but I really think it would have blended a little bit better had I not done that. So here I am just making sure I go through that same process, and I don't want to take off too much of this tail, and I'm trying to make sure that I tear out the paper and I get all of the red border out of there. I don't want that. And here I am, I'm putting the primer on the Cardinal pieces, which I really wish I had not done, because what it did is it kind of made a halo around that paper, and it didn't blend as well into the music paper, and that's kind of what I had originally envisioned. But anyway, I could have torn the edges on that paper a little bit, even with the white on the back, and it would have blended better. But I kind of deal with that later. You'll see that. So I'm putting my decoupage medium, and I'm putting a healthy amount on there because it's a very slick surface. And I want to make sure that it adheres to it. So I'm going to put that on there, and then I'm going to go ahead and put my pieces of decoupage paper, background paper, which is the music paper. And I did get in a lot of different decoupage paper. Take a look on my website. And it has a lot of background papers that I got with it too. We're going to be doing a project or several projects with that where we need the background paper, but the background paper comes in handy for a lot of projects. So now I'm going to go ahead, after I put that paper down, I'm going to go ahead and put some decoupage medium on the back of this. This is the Cardinal portion of it. And I'm going to make sure I have plenty on it and put that down. And I'm going to go ahead and use my little baggy trick and make sure that gets down really, really well. I think these Cardinals work extremely well in this frame. because it's almost the same color red. Anyway, I am using my heat gun. That's a trick to get the bubbles and things out. It almost always works perfectly. And I'm going to go through the same process with the other frame. And one thing about these frames, when I originally got them, I thought I was going to paint them and, distress them and do them white. But if you see these, they are gorgeous. They have a very distressed look to them. They're just beautiful the way they are, and I don't want to paint them. And I think this is the perfect way to use them with these cardinals in there. It's almost the same tone of red. So I go through the same process, and I put that beautiful cardinal in the middle. Actually, when I get done with these, I'm really not sure I'm going to sell them because they're just beautiful. The cardinals are beautiful, and the combination is amazing. I bought these frames at an estate sale for $10 each. And I'm sure that was because the mirror portion of it was messed up. So, look on Facebook Marketplace, go to estate sales. It's amazing what you can get for a good price, where you can make a very unique and inexpensive project. And one thing I was trying to do is blend right here. And I'm using some Ranger Vintage Photo. It's a water-based antiquing medium. It's an ink. And the reason I'm using a water-based is that I'm putting it on the edges of where that decoupage paper is, because the white kind of showed through a little bit, and it has kind of a halo effect. And because this is water-based, when I put my top coat on like I am now, I'm using Satin by Paint Couture. I don't want a super shiny finish because I want this to look really vintage and old, but I want a little bit of a sheen to it, and the satin works really well. And what's going to happen is, because it's a water-based product and the ink that I used was water-based, it's going to blend it all together so it's not so pronounced. And it's also going to kind of antique all of this paper a little bit. It's going to kind of, not a lot, just a little bit, and that will all blend together. And that's kind of the look I want. So I do that on both of them. And then I'm going to let it dry completely. And now what I'm doing is I have my little iron after everything's completely dry, and I'm going to go over the whole thing. I've got some parchment paper, and I am doing this just to make sure there's no wrinkles and no bubbles, because we put two pieces of paper together, and that usually will have some bubbles or wrinkles in it. And now I'm taking my antique gold rub and buff with a paintbrush, and I'm just going around the edges to fill in any gaps that you might see the mirror behind it, or if I didn't cut it out perfectly. And also, it's going to frame out this entire thing. This antique gold almost matches perfectly with the gold that's in there. And I do take a tiny bit of little rub and buff on my finger and add some to the little portions of the frame that you see there on the left and the right and the top and the bottom, and add just a little touch of the gold just to add a little more to it. And that's it. I think they turned out beautiful, and I think these cardinals are perfect for this frame. Let me know what you think. Okay, the name you see flashing up there is our final winner of our 10,000 subscriber giveaway. Just contact me with your address in my email. That'll be in the description box, and I can get your prize out to you as soon as possible, guys. And congratulations to everyone. All right, project number 5. This is our last project, and this is super duper easy, but very, very cute. Just a super easy project and super cute. These are some beautiful papers. I believe this is from AB Studios. I do carry this on my website also. And I'm just tearing around all of these paper. This is rice paper again. And these are these cute little critters. For any of you that did not get your hands on the Yuletide or you didn't want to spend the money on that, this has a very similar kind of cute critter look to it. And we're going to just go around. We're going to do 5 of these. Obviously, you could do the whole sheet, but we're going to do 5. And I'm just taking little critters out that I like. And of course I'm doing the water trick and tearing them, so we have that rough raw edge that's gonna kind of meld into our project. I have some wood blanks. These are the wood slices. I bought these on Amazon. I'll try and remember to link all this stuff. If I forget to link things, guys, please let me know. Just let me know in the comments and I'll put them out there. You can buy them at Hobby Lobby. I think they even sell them at Dollar Tree. And I'm just using my decoupage medium, and we're going to put these on with a decoupage medium. I didn't treat the wood or anything. It will basically seal it as we use it. So as we use a decoupage medium. And the really fun thing about this is because of the white background, it is going to just kind of mesh into this wood and just look like it's either painted on or like a transfer. And we're going to get that really cute look in a very inexpensive way. This is a great project if you have, people that you want to give a gift to. You could do about 5 of these and, put them in a little box or whatever, a little bag. It'd be a great little gift to give somebody. Great thing to sell at craft fairs. They go very quickly. I usually sell them in a 5-pack for like $20. And they're super easy to make, very fast and quick little project. So after I've done all of those, I am going to be stamping on the back of them. And I'm using a stamp set from IOD that is discontinued. I think it's called Very Merry. And by the way, guys, I have a whole portion, and I have to get it up on my website. I'm going to try and do it this weekend, of things that are discontinued that I purchased. I didn't get them wholesale. I got them retail. But I'm going to be putting them up on my website. Almost just at cost, really. And you can take a look at those if you want to spend the extra money and buy them. But they're going to be out there just because I know that some people would love to get their hands on some of this stuff. And I do have that stamp set. I think I have a couple of them. So what I'm doing now is I have some beads that I got from the Dollar Tree. I put them on a skewer to paint them, and I used Fusion's Bayberry and Highlander. And then all I'm going to do is I have some jute string, and I put those little beads on top just to jazz it up. And that's our project, guys. I hope you like them. Okay, guys, that's it for today. And if you happen to need any IOD Fusion, Paint Couture, Pentart products, Sweet Pickins Milk Paint, JRV products, or decoupage paper, you can get that on my website, rehatchdesigns.com. The link will be in the description. We're running a special right now. If you buy $35 worth of product, you get free shipping and then flat rate shipping after that. Okay, so I will see you guys on Wednesday. I'll have a video out for you then. Bye-bye.